Miley Cyrus has been a prominent figure in music since 2006, whether it was as Miley Cyrus, Hannah Montana, or even Ashley O. Over the past 17 years, she has evolved and so has her music. She's had pop anthems, country songs, rock albums, dabbled in R&B, hip-hop, and experimental psychedelic music. Since January, Flowers has had a chokehold over the world, becoming the biggest song of the year, and now she's released her 8th studio album, Endless Summer Vacation. So today on Music Rewind, we're ranking all of Miley Cyrus's albums from worst to best to see which is, in my opinion, her best album. This list excludes her EPs Time of Our Lives and She Is Coming, and her live album Attention. Number 8. Meet Miley Cyrus. Miley Cyrus's debut album is an interesting listen because of how much attitude and charisma she had at just 14 years old. While it is a teen pop rock album with quite juvenile lyrics, there are still glimpses of the Miley Cyrus we see today, her carefree attitude and direct approach. Compared to the debut albums of past Disney alumni such as Hilary Duff, Selena Gomez, and Demi Lovato, it's a lot more mature than I anticipated it would be. The rock elements on this album, best shown on Start All Over and See You Again, aren't overproduced and don't eclipse Miley's vocals at all. And for a 14-year-old, her vocal agility and power are pretty strong and she carries those songs quite nicely. But as I said, this is a very young album, and songs like East Northumberland High, Girls Night Out and Clear haven't aged that well and appeal very heavily to a preteen audience, which I am not. But overall, for a Disney act in 2007, it's a solid effort, but it would be weird if I called this her best album. Number 7. Miley Cyrus and Her Dead Pets. So this album was very controversial when it was released. She announced it while hosting the VMAs, but it was eclipsed by the Nicki Minaj What's Good fiasco. There are a lot of ideas on this project, some great, some weird, some bad, and some I don't care for. Some of the songs I enjoyed were the Floyd song, Space Boots, Tangerine, and Baby Talk. But overall, I agree with all music who say, Miley Cyrus and Her Dead Pets needs an editor, but there's more than enough worthwhile music here to transcend shock value. These seem like demos of half-baked ideas, and while I understand the appeal and see the album's full potential, it's not for me. I've tried to rank it, but there isn't a song on here I actually love, just moderately enjoyed. Number 6. Breakout. Breakout is a much stronger album than her debut. The rock element is amplified on this album with clear influences from Avril Lavigne and Paramore. What I took away from this album is you can tell which songs Miley Cyrus wrote. The title track and the cover of Girls Just Wanna Have Fun are okay, but you can hear the conviction and confidence in her voice on songs like 7 Things, The Driveway, and Fly on the Wall. The passion is there on those songs compared to the ones she didn't write. Lyrically, the album has a lot more imagery than her debut, which is nice, but at the same time, they play on the breakup cliche lyricism which is expected for a 15-year-old. To summarize, Breakout is most definitely a pop rock Disney album, but one of the better ones. Number 5. Younger Now. Younger Now is Miley's first real venture into country music. During this time, Miley had reunited with Liam Hemsworth and was sober, with many people stating that Miley had calmed down and returned to herself. What I like about this album is that it sounds peaceful, and while Miley said this album is honest and a return to her roots, this album doesn't really feel authentic. I'm sure during the time Miley probably felt this peace and calm, but at the same time I'm having difficulty believing it. Even when this album first came out, there was a bit of a disconnect. But how's the music? This is the calmest Miley has been. The production is very minimal and the songwriting is very singular, which is likely because besides a co-write from Dolly Parton on Rainbow Land, Miley was the only songwriter on this album. She discusses the wonderful sides of love in Malibu and Rainbow Land, but what I'm drawn into the most are the other emotions felt throughout. Thinking is one of my favorites, with a Shania Twain bombastic production where she's paranoid about what her boyfriend is doing. Week Without You is another good one about taking a break from love to reevaluate, and the best song, Bad Mood, is about being in an overdrawn relationship and learning when it's time to call it quits. Overall, Younger Now has its strengths, but besides a handful of good songs, there's nothing really memorable about this album. Don't get me wrong, it's good. Tracks like Bad Move, Love Someone, and Malibu make you glad you listened, but this feels limited. It might have been a calm down moment for Miley following Bangerz and Dead Pets, but it's not surprising that no one, including Miley, really brings up this album anymore. But Miley's vocal performance in Younger Now is very delicate and lovely, so if you enjoy that part of her voice, then this album is perfect for you. Number 4. Can't Be Tamed. On Metacritic, Can't Be Tamed is Miley's worst performing album, scoring a 48. Many claim this album was a top 40 record, chasing the hits and calling it a failed attempt to become Lady Gaga and Kelly Clarkson, since Miley Cyrus adapted a more adult image and sound with provocative music videos and dark electro pop songs, which were becoming very popular in 2010. Now I should point out that around the time Miley was still on Disney and some of the outrage stemmed from that, but was the criticism valid? Honestly, no. Can't Be Tamed has its flaws, but it was the shake-up Miley needed. The album performed okay, but didn't produce the big numbers her previous albums did. But in short, I believe Can't Be Tamed walked, so Bangerz and all of her other albums could run. But how good is this album? The album is a mixture of electro-pop songs and ballads, and she flexes her vocals, so we know she has some pipes, and some of these songs are brilliant. Can't Be Tamed and Who Won My Heart are amongst her best singles she's ever released. The production is great, they're fun and energetic. I like her covers of Every Rose Has Its Thorns. Stay may be a sappy song, but I enjoyed her vocal performance. However, I do agree with the criticism about the overusage of autotune, especially on Liberty Walk and Permanent December. And some of the ballads like Forgiveness and Love are quite boring despite the decent singing. This isn't my favourite album she's ever made, but I actually respect Miley for taking a risk so early on. Again, while this album wasn't her biggest success, I feel like she had to fail, a word I'm using very loosely, to successfully escape the pigeonhole of being a child star, and she showed the industry she isn't afraid to be different, so props to her. Number 3. Bangerz. Bangerz was a very exciting time in Miley's career. She joined a new label after leaving Disney, and she did everything in her power to distance herself from the preconceived identity she had. While her antics and behavior around this time were erratic and outlandish, it didn't damage the quality of the music, because while Bangerz is a wild time, in retrospect, it's one of her most cohesive albums. It flips between love and breakup songs with Adore You, Get It Right, Wrecking Ball and Nephew, and anthemic liberation party songs like We Can't Stop, Do My Thing and On My Own. This album leads heavily on urban sounds, working exclusively with Mike Will Made It and Pharrell, and included hip-hop features from Nelly, Future, Ludacris and French Montana. The album seems like a continuation of Can't Be Tamed's electro sound, but leaving heavier on EDM than the European dance influence. While I enjoy the upbeat tracks, I give credit to the ballads here because they are some of the strongest on this album. While My Darling isn't great, Maybe You're Right, Drive and Someone Else are brilliant with superb vocals, emotional depth and vivid imagery, especially Drive. Bangerz, despite some overwhelming production and lackluster collaborations like My Darling and Love Money Party, is a pretty good album, which showcases Miley's ability to convey a multitude of emotions and experiences within one album. Bangerz is all the proof we need to see how Miley Cyrus is an engaging entertainer, and it's aged quite well. Number 2. Endless Summer Vacation. Now, the success of Flowers has been nothing short of astonishing, considering she hasn't had a single with this much attention since Wrecking Ball. This tweet makes me laugh because it pretty much sums up how I feel about it. I have no idea what this album is going to be like because of how radio silent Miley has been since releasing Flowers. After giving it a few listens, I can say this is one of Miley's most ambitious albums. While it doesn't take any major risks as she did on Bangerz and Dead Pets, Endless Summer Vacation does a pretty great job of navigating itself through different sounds and moods. Miley said this album is separated into two sides, AM and PM, and this is a love letter to LA, and I think for the most part she accomplished that. Something this album has done very well is delegate between various genres while sticking with the theme and coming up with fresh ideas. We have the 80s sound of Flowers, Jaded has that rock edge similar to Plastic Hearts, River and Violet Chemistry complement each other very nicely with their camp 90s sound, very reminiscent of Madonna and Pet Shop Boys. Handstand sounds like a song that could have been found on Bangerz or Dead Pets, with the sexually charged lyrics and rough electronic production. 1000 Miles sounds like it could have been on Younger Now. You is another amazing song, and while the live version on Attention is still supreme, I love the sort of Lana Del Rey Born to Die production paired with her raspy belt, which gives the song so much emotional depth and grit. The album goes through many sounds but still stays focused. The AM side leans more towards the rock and soft pop sound, while the PM side delves into a dark electronic sound mixed with tropical rock to bring it back to the start. I think people wanted more from this album in terms of storytelling, considering the lead single is very descriptive and heavily rumored to be about Liam Hemsworth, but what we have here is a collection of expressive songs, which are some of her strongest. But some songs like Island and 1000 Miles do start to drag and feel like fillers, and I do kind of struggle to grasp the LA concept. But nonetheless, this is a very strong album, and I hope Miley explores more of the 90s techno sound on River, but also continues to focus on rock music because that is where she is at her strongest. Leading me to my number 1, Plastic Hearts. Back in 2020, I reviewed this album and listed it as my favorite album of the year, and now, nothing has changed because this is the best Miley has ever been. She seems so comfortable in this genre, although her live screaming vocals did seem forced. Lyrically, the album is like a screw you to everyone in the media for judging her. The melodies are catchy, the lyrics are interesting, and her performance is outstanding. With Plastic Hearts, Miley wasn't following the 80s disco sound that everyone was doing during this time, but she incorporated this glam rock sound, and she became an absolute rock diva, a role she plays so effortlessly. Angels Like You is a brilliantly written song. Give Me What I Want and Night Calling have this haunting and electrifying production I can't get enough of. She ends the album with a lot of slow, vulnerable moments where she sings about the right time to say goodbye and hi, her relationship missteps and mistakes, but passion for working it out on Never Be Me, and ending with her unapologetic anthem about not letting the media break her stride and navigating through a society where everyone is judging her on golden G-string. Plus, the covers are pure gold, especially Heart of Glass, and having Stevie Nicks, one of the most iconic rock stars ever, back you up is mind-blowing. I only ever needed one listen to determine this album was a hit, and with every listen it gets better. Plastic Hearts is Miley Cyrus's best album, and this has set my standards very high for her music going forward, because this album is proof she can produce excellence.